So I'm gonna start this little video. I just want to talk about what Title I is and what Title I actually brings, because there's no implementation for the services for the lowest achieving students here in Nevada because there's no evidence of work. So let me just share the screen and go here. And so anyways, this is the 2020-21 Family Engagement Every Student Succeed Act. This is under Obama. So this is actually Title I Part A, Section 1116 and 1112. And so when you go through this, Nevada doesn't give you any data. So there's nowhere you can get data in regards to the lowest achieving students or the targeted support that's happening for those children, nor you cannot even get the location of those children and then you don't get to see where the teachers are teaching, because they don't want to teach in those higher poverty schools. And this all really goes down to choice and a lack of oversight. So if you scroll down through this, just know this is online, their plan. And then I actually was able to, a few minutes ago, audio record some of the information that's written in the law that talks about what the federal purpose is for the Title I dollars. My goodness, and today we're going to look at this plan of Nevada's, and they are going to do a presentation on it. And when they're doing the presentation, I wonder, no, I don't have to wonder. I know they will not present any data. And so irregardless of how they're talking about implementing these services, there's no documented evidence of services actually being implemented in those higher poverty schools or with those children who are the lowest achieving, because the increase in the incarceration rate and the increase of children who are dropping out of school and other become, delinquent or neglected or foster youth or lots of things, lots of reasons why children are not being successful, but mostly it's because of lack of coordinated services in any one community. So anyways, we'll scroll through this. I don't really know how many pages this is, but I believe it should be pretty lengthy. Let's see. This really just goes down and tries to answer and explain some of the questions, but it doesn't take it down to the particular school or entity or person who is responsible for these services. So these services don't exist. This is just an empty something that every school could use, I guess, that Nevada's providing to their local schools to help them to coordinate those answers and document the work effort. And they don't bother to do that because they don't have to. And they never had to. And so why would they start doing it now? Especially since they said, oh, well, because of FARPA. I said, what is FARPA? That is that, that Privacy Act that would identify the children who would be disabled or who would be in poverty and the work that you were doing around it. No, I'm sorry. That is not an excuse. If you take the federal dollars, then you just become responsible for the outcomes for everyone. But not until people start talking about what you're not doing. And because of COVID-19 really exposes a lot of the dysfunction that was going on prior to COVID-19 and who wasn't getting the benefit. So as you can see, there is really a requirement to respond to this data. And just because they provided this empty box for local schools to complete, how often does your school give you an opportunity to engage in your child's learning? Well, even if it's not at all or a tremendous amount, there's no way to measure that because there's no data, no documented evidence. This is kind of really sad. I mean, this is 2020 and everything is about data. And see, if you were doing the work, there'd be documented evidence that the work was being done. And you could just plug in these little boxes and it will show which schools are very sufficient or efficient in completing the work and targeting the children and giving them opportunities. And then it would target the schools that aren't doing anything and they're just sitting back. It may as well be like welfare queens, or what can I say? You want to call people on welfare queens and, lazy on the system? And I'm saying, okay, well, what's the difference here? You got people who are in positions of power denying access to people who would need those skills. And it's a shame that they have 12 years to give you something and they don't give you nothing, just nothing. And every summer and every Christmas holiday and every Easter break, they go on vacation just like you and they get paid and you don't. And here you are, 12 years out of the public service sector, unable to be employed, illiterate, and unable to access public resources. And isn't that apparent right now when you look across this nation and every large city where the poor and the impoverished really still don't have a way of accessing resources? Because quite frankly, they've just been robbed. You see, in order to have a nation that's functional, you have to have the participation of all of the people. And when all of the people pay taxes, especially those gifted people and those rap artists who sing about having to pay $100,000 in taxes, and honey, I can believe it, because that's one thing people seem to manage to do, is trap the monetary gains of people. And even if you're on welfare or receiving any aid, people know exactly what you're getting because they monitor your back. They monitor you, and everybody's monitored. And so we know that there are some people just unfortunately have not been able to maintain steady employment. A little something here, a little something there, and really never get a W-2 or whatever. But I guess people are paying I guess people are acknowledging that those people were working too, because now for those independent contractors that were working through Uber and Lyft, those drivers have gotten some unemployment benefits, which is wonderful, because they never really had enough income to file taxes. But then on the other hand, shall we talk about taxation without representation in America? Because I know that all the taxes that Bill Cosby paid, and every person who is acknowledged in America to be a famous entertainer paid lots in taxes, more than any average citizen, and definitely more than local business people. And then you have to understand that they have all those sports players and they're paying taxes too. But when it comes out to measuring the monetary gains in the local community for the people who look like them, well, God, they've just been denied access for the advocacy, for the support, and the oversight, and the engagement in the public process, because people just somehow just can ignore their concerns. And I wonder how that is, that in America, you can be ignored. But guess what? Some people won't be ignored because they just simply won't go away. And I think I'm one of those people. But anyways, it doesn't really matter, because I'm only talking about what everyone should be talking about, is about, how we ensure that our children and our grandchildren and our children's and our great grands, because this is really now a nation that's building upon tribes that finally African Americans can go back 2 or 3 generations. Because prior to the 2 or 3 generations, we must all admit that we don't know who we're connected to in America. And that's something we will never know unless we all do that DNA thing that they're doing, so that we can understand who we're connected to by DNA. And because certain policies that were being implemented across America allowed children to be split away from their families and sold, and then use people as breeders and public whatever commodities. I guess commodities is a word, whatever. But the real deal is, now there was really no reparations for the cruelty and the dysfunction that America has gone through. But every person who ever created a wonderful ideal, or, you know, like the refrigerator and all those things that Black people created, and guess what? There's still nothing in their community that they can say that they have a voice in the outcomes of. Why is it that everybody gets to choose what they will do about us or people who look like me? I mean, hey, it's just real. I have color in my skin, and the inability to affect change is relevant to me. And so, as long as I understand that there is a personal responsibility when people sit on boards and commissions that promise to swear to oversee and ensure access for all peoples, and somehow it ain't happening for my peoples, well, I just have a great concern. So today, when Nevada goes through this second day of the funding commission, or a commission on funding formula, or weighted student funding formula, I really want to hear about the at-risk group. I really want to hear about Title I and the intent behind public Title I services, and how that affects the local community, and how they monitor and measure the maintenance effort, and what are they exactly doing that would allow children to continue to drop out. And what about this chronic absenteeism problem that they're having, when they cannot now document that those children were ever engaged in the educational process in the first place because they don't have no data for whatever reason? They were lumping in statewide data, but then they don't have any targeted data, and they don't have any information locally down to the specific school, because somebody told me that worked for Title I that said no one would ever admit to what they were doing with the money locally. So isn't that fraud? I mean, you don't just get to create specialties for people with money and then leave other people behind. It doesn't work that way. So before I start recording, because I think it's on right now, I'm going to end this, upload it, and then we'll see you later.